Hello, today I want to show you how to create a real-world data-driven mobile web app with React and using a couple libraries, one called Chakra UI and React Router. And the app we're going to be building is a authentic relating games app. So first of all, I want to show you just a very simple mock-up of what the app's going to look like. Basically, we have a main page that has a list of games called game cards here, and when you click on one of them, it'll take you to a detail page which is going to give you instructions and all the information about the game. And we have a header bar here that is going to have some buttons. Initially, it's going to have sorting buttons, and we also have routing built into the app, or we're going to add that pretty soon, early on. And yeah, I'm not sure how long this video is going to be. It's probably going to be a series of maybe 20-minute long videos. So yeah, let's just jump right in this project. So I have already Visual Studio open here. Basically, I used the Create React App tool to bootstrap this app, which creates several files. And I made a few changes already just to get up and running quickly. But first of all, let me start this. We're going to do this by typing yarn start. And you can also use npm instead of yarn, but I like yarn a little bit better. So let's see what this app is looking like right now. Okay, so yeah, so we have basically, this is the list. I have already 2 buttons here, and I'm going to go through the changes I made so far. Basically, I only changed 3 files here. I changed this app.js, which has some stuff in here by default, which I took out. Also, we're not going to need this app.css, so I'm going to delete it right now. And this file we don't need either, so I'll delete this. Okay, so we have this app.js, which is kind of where everything goes to begin with, and I created this component called game list, and if we look inside game list, we have just a few divs. We have a div up here that has 2 buttons up here, and then we have another div that basically does a loop. It does it's creating a list of items. And this is basic React stuff, so yeah, you can read up on this. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the basics because there's a lot of information out there. But let's look at this game data. So we're importing this game data here, and so this basically has some test data. So we have a couple games I put in here. Just very basic parameters. We have the time for the game and then the group size. And we're going to be sorting we're going to use these parameters to sort the data a little bit later. And then I have some just filler data right here. So first of all, let me open up the debug console. And we can see this, because really this is going to be a mobile app, so we want to look at it in this sort of format. Right now we have 230 by 350 pixels, and it's zoomed in a little bit, which is good, because that way we can see it easier. So I'm going to put this a little bit zoomed in. We can also make this a little smaller, actually, so we can see the log messages will show up here. And we can see right away that there's already there's a warning here. It says each child in a list should have a unique key prop. So this is something important to keep in mind with React, is that React wants you to have this key prop. So I'm going to put it in right here. Just put key equals, and it's going to be game.id. That's going to be the unique key for each item. And we can see in this game data here that each of these items has an ID 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's see, it's giving another error now, which is encountered 2 children with the same key. This may be just a problem. Yeah, that's a problem with the data. So I have, this should be 5 here. Yeah, the titles are all wrong, but it's, you know, it's the IDs that actually matter. So we have 6 duplicated, so this should be 7, this should be 8. And this is needed by React to really be able to render the page efficiently and in a way that doesn't have any, you know, any bugs at any point. Okay, let me try to reload this page. Okay, so now it's rendering with no errors. The next thing I want to check is, you know, we have a very basic component that has 2 divs here. So I want to see if the scrolling. Okay, yes, I did put. I wasn't sure if I had put this in here, but I have this. These 3 attributes are what makes it scroll correctly. So, for example, if I comment out these 3 attributes, and then see now the scrolling is the top bar is also scrolling, which we actually want this top bar to be always there. That'll make the app more user friendly. Yeah, so this is kind of our very basic app with, you know, very minimal, no styles or anything. And what I want to show you is how to now add this Chakra UI library, which is going to make it look a lot nicer. So I'm going to start by going to this Chakra UI getting started. We have these instructions on how to add the libraries. You can use npm or yarn. I'm going to use yarn. So I'm going to first of all stop this. It was running in this terminal window, so I'm going to stop this and I'm going to paste this command here, which is going to add the necessary Chakra packages. And this will probably take just about 10 seconds or so. And in the meantime, I want to say that okay, now it's done. All right, so this created this yarn.log file. It's just an automatically created file. You don't have to worry about this. And if you look in this package.json, you're going to see these green bars here tell you kind of modified items or added items. So you're going to see we have added Chakra UI, these 3 packages, and also this framer motion. Those are just the recommended packages with Chakra UI. Okay, so once you have Chakra UI, what we can do is, instead of using these div components, we're going to use something else called box. So let's just make. Okay, so first of all, we're going to have to import, let's say, box from Chakra. All right, I have to remember what I have to import. Yeah, so it's this one here. I don't think I need these. Oh wait, maybe I do need this. I forgot. Okay, let's see if this gives us any error. Oh yeah, so I forgot I need to start the app again. So type yarn start, and we're gonna make these also box. Now, before we had used this style attribute, and it's not the best way to do it in React. There's a couple other ways to do it, to add styles. These are CSS styles. So, but this is, you know, kind of the way that's the simplest maybe way of doing it with React. So I'm going to make this a box, that a box. That was a typo. The nice thing about Visual Studio is like when you have a typo, it'll underline it usually. So that's kind of nice. Okay, so it's still not looking very good, and I'm gonna go back to here. Okay, I guess I have to open again the console, so we see it's actually looking pretty much the same as it was before. And part of that reason is that we actually need to add the Chakra provider. If we go back into the documentation, it says here setup provider. So we're gonna copy this line here, and we're gonna actually put this in our, let's say, put it in our app.js. So we're gonna import the Chakra provider, and then surrounding this, I'm gonna use Chakra provider here, and then we're gonna move everything that was outside, we're gonna move it in here. And you'll notice also when I save my file, it automatically formats it. That's because I'm using an extension called Prettier. I believe, yeah, this one here, Prettier Code Formatter. And that's very convenient. You don't have to ever worry about how you're formatting your file. It just automatically does it for you. Okay, so now that we have this provider, now we can see that it looks a little bit different. Sorry. We still have this list, and the buttons now are looking actually worse. But that's because we actually want to use this button component from Chakra. So we're going to import box and button. And when we do this, okay, so now it looks different. Still doesn't look great because it's actually a little too big. Let's actually see what this would look like on an iPhone 6, for example. Okay, so that's what we're looking at here. I noticed that we're missing any sort of space between these two buttons. So one thing we can do is we can just add, let's see, first of all, let's remove the style. We don't want to really use this at this point. So one thing I want to do is I'm going to try to use something called a stack component. And we have to import stack. Okay, so these have the two buttons side by side. I think there's another one called H stack for a horizontal stack. Let's try that one. Yeah, so that one has it on horizontally. So for now we can use this one. The other thing I want to do is I want to add some margin around here. The way you do it in Chakra, the kind of simplified way is you just write m. M equals, let's say, 2. And then it's going to add a little bit of margin there. And what else? Another thing we can do is we can add a bottom border bottom. I think if we do this and set this to 1, just oh, I think it's actually maybe width. And we may have to set the color on the border bottom color, and we'll make this gray. Well, that still is not working. I think maybe this this component doesn't actually, that's not the right way to do it, so I'm gonna just leave it for now. But basically I want to see if, okay, I'm gonna work on the cards next. So I'm gonna take each of these cards is rendered inside of this game data.map. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a new component and call it game card, or card. Yes, that's fine. And this component is going to the way that, you know, you should know how React Components works. But if you don't, it's just a function that returns any number of, like, it's going to return one element, but then that element can have a bunch of elements inside of it. So we're going to put a box, and React Components require a the first parameter, or the pretty much only parameter that you need to worry about is a map of properties. And so we could say props here, and yeah, we can say const we'll just call this game equals to props, and this will destructure, it's called destructuring. It will take the properties out of this props variable and put it into the game. Takes a little bit to get used to it if you're not used to JavaScript, but it's pretty simple. So we're gonna just render, put inside of this box another couple of boxes, and in the first one we're gonna actually, let's put a heading component. So heading, and it automatically imports it when I type it in here, and we'll make this heading the game title. So we put this in curly brackets, game.title, and then underneath the heading we're gonna put the game dot, I believe it's content we called it. Let's try that. So we're gonna save this, and then here instead of this, we're gonna just render the game card, and we're gonna say that the game property is also called game here, so it's just game equals game, and I think that's pretty much it. Okay, so that pretty much worked. We have the first title and the first content. So one thing I'm noticing is, you know, this looks kind of ugly because There's no divisions between these cards. One way we could make it look nicer is we can actually, well, let's see. There's probably a few ways. We can probably find a card component. Let's see if we can find a card component here. Actually, I guess we don't have a card component. I'm probably thinking of another library. But basically what we could do is put a border let's check how the borders actually work. And actually I'm glad that I'm having some issues, because I want to show you my process for developing this app. You know, I don't remember all of these things offhand, so I often need to look things up, and that's part of what I want to show is, you know, the whole process of developing this app. So there's in this Chakra docs, there's, you know, some items here on like how to upgrade, design principles, and then it has another heading that says features. And this first item here in the style props, it tells you all the different properties you can use for most of the components, I believe. So for example, you know, this is margin. The first part is margin and padding. So we have all these M properties, MT, MR. These are just abbreviations for margin properties. Then we have padding properties, and then we have color and background. These are all can be very useful. We have typography, which is like the font size, the font weight, alignment, style. And now the next item here is layout. Flexbox is something that you will probably want to use at some point. It's very useful. And grid layout is probably a little bit similar to Flexbox. So yeah, so then what I wanted to get to is this border. So we want to basically put a border around each card to make it look like an actual card. So what we can do is do something similar to this. We can say border is 1 pixel. And oh, sorry, no comma here. Border color is okay, so I think the way they do is gray, let's say gray 500 or 200, I think is what they had. So if we save this, yeah, so we can see now that each of these boxes has a border, but it's still not very nice. I'm gonna put a border radius. Let's see what border radius should be here. Yeah, so border radius is just going to be a number, or it can be like this medium. I guess it can be this medium property. So let's try that. Let's try border radius equals MD, which stands for medium, I guess. And so now you can see that there's actually like a little border on here. And we're also going to need there's margin and there's padding. I think we want a little bit of both. So let's say M equals 2 and P equals 2. Oh, wait a minute. I am putting this in the wrong place. So this is what we're working on right now. yeah, so we have these properties up here for the game card, and now we can see that each card has its own little border radius around it, a border with a radius around it. And I'm going to make this a little darker. From gray 200, I'm going to change it to gray 400 so we can actually see it a little better. So that's starting to look a little bit more like a card. So next, what I want to do is I'm going to make this header look a little bit nicer too. Okay, so I actually paused it for a second because I had to do something. Paused the video, and I looked up also how to do this thing, which is adding. I wanted to really add this border to the header, and also make it sticky, because right now, as you can see, when I scroll, the buttons are going away. So basically, this is adding this border. I'm gonna undo this comment one by one so you can see here we have a bottom line kind of separating the buttons, and then I decided to also add a box shadow, which makes it look a little bit more like it's overlaid on top. And then this right here, this SX means kind of custom style properties. We're going to add this sticky, position sticky, and top is 0. And when I make this change, now we can see that this is actually sticky. But the only problem is now the background is still showing through, which looks really terrible. So what I had to do is add a background of white. This is a Chakra UI shortcut. BG stands for background. So now it looks correct. So we have the app is looking in better shape right now. The next thing I want to do is I want to also add some of the attributes in this game data. So as you can see, we have 4 other attributes. It's the time, the minimum time and maximum time, and min group size and max group size. This tells you how many, what are the parameters of the game, the time, and how many people can play. So I'm going to actually put that inside these cards so we can see that in here. So I'm going to go back to my game list component. I know my screen is a little bit crowded. I think I'm going to change the screen for the layout for the next video I make. So we have this game card component. We have this heading. We have the content. And now underneath here, I'm going to put a flex component, which actually will allow me to lay out, and you will see in a minute what this does. And I'm going to put inside of here a couple other boxes. We'll have two more boxes inside here, and the first one will say time, and the second one will say group size. And let's see how this looks. Okay, so we need to import flex. I'm going to add flex right here. Okay, so we have time and group size, but we actually want the spacing to be yeah, this sometimes happens with React, is you have to reload the page if it just gets confused. So we're going to add a spacing. The flex by default will put the 2 items in a row. You can also make it so it's in a column, but this is what we want actually. So we're going to put flex spacing I thought it was spacing. Let's look at the Flexbox documentation. So we're going to search for Flex component, and this is a very useful layout in both in HTML and CSS, and it's been put into this Chakra UI toolkit. So yeah, so basically we want this. We want, okay, so we can actually use a spacer, I guess. Maybe this is the kind of easiest way to do it. Yeah, so let's try the spacer, see. Since it's in the documentation, why not? So I'm going to import flex and spacer, and I'm going to put a spacer in here. And let's see what this does. Yeah, so now we can see that we have the time on the left side and the group size on the right side. So now we're going to put in the data from the game object. And actually, what I want to do here is, let's see. I guess the simplest way is game.min time, and then put a dash and then say game.max time. Yeah, so this one's 4 to 10, and then we want to also say that it's minutes, so we'll put mins for short. And then for the group size, we're going to put game.min group size and dash game.max group size. And we're going to say people here. Okay, so let me think if there's anything we can do to make this look a little bit better. First of all, I think we want to add a little spacing. I'm going to put MT for top. And I'll add, let's say, two units of spacing. So now we have a little bit more space here. And I think this looks pretty good right now. Another thing we could do is put this time underneath the time and put the group size underneath the group size. But I think I'm going to leave it right now as it is, because it's working pretty well. And my main philosophy is to make gradual changes as I see things I can improve, but not try to make it look perfect right away at the beginning, because it's never going to be perfect. Another thing I want to do quickly is I want to let me look at the heading documentation, and I actually want to make it a little bit smaller because it seems really big. So I'm going to use the size property, and I think maybe the normal one is large or medium, I don't know. Let's try to do this heading and say size is medium, and we'll see what this does. Yeah, so now that's quite a bit smaller. Now we actually might want to put a little bit of spacing below this, so we're going to say MB for bottom. And by the way, you can use just the quotes like this too, or you can use the brackets like this, and they're pretty much the same. And that's because in JavaScript, you know, numbers and text can be kind of interchanged, which is sometimes quite confusing, but that's how JavaScript usually works. Let me put a space here to make this more readable. Another thing I wanted to mention is while I paused the video, I added this key item, which I had forgotten to add in, so I added this back in. So we basically have beginnings of an app. We have 2 buttons, which right now don't do anything. And I think I'm going to leave this for the next video, making these buttons actually work. So, because this video is already probably about 30 minutes long. And yeah, very excited that we are making progress.